On the count of five, four, three, two, one, we are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a podcast channel where we talk to entrepreneurs from all over the world who are building startups and companies on the PropTech space. And I was just talking to Pankaj just before this, where I was the boundaries are graying between hostels or where do you slot very short stays accommodations? Would you slot them into property? Would you slot them into hospitality? But still, I wanted to go ahead with this conversation with Pankaj. I got to know about him. So today we have our guest is Pankaj, is the co-founder of goSTOPS. goSTOPS is India's fastest growing backpacker hostel brand, and in the span of just 8 years, they have, or maybe more. Maybe Pankaj can correct this later. They have established their presence in each of the major tourist spots of India and have hosted over 500,000 travelers across 35 odd properties with over 3,000 beds. They cater almost exclusively to the age group between 18 and 30 years of age, and comprise a cross section of solo travelers, group travelers, backpackers, digital nomads, and individuals who seek interesting stay experience. Before goSTOPS, I pulled this from LinkedIn. Pankaj was in senior management for several years in telecom industry like Ericsson, Huawei, and Nokia. So it must have been a strong calling for him to move out of corporate to build something like this. So let's welcome Pankaj to PropTechBuzz. Hello, Pankaj. Welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Ravi, for inviting me to your channel. And I'm doing very well, despite the gloomy weather in Delhi today.
And I heard the winters have been really, really harsh this time.
Absolutely.
I was talking to my sister who is in Bhubaneswar,
Mm.
uh, uh, very much in the middle of India, and still cold there. And I can imagine how cold it could be in Delhi.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Pankaj, before we get into the meatier stuff of how things are with the GoStop, maybe it would be a good context setter to know your journey a bit. So, could you tell us where did you start with your career? How has your corporate journey been, and then how did you transition to GoStops?
So, I am an engineer by education. I did my engineering in electronics and telecommunication from Manipal Institute of Technology, and I graduated in 2006. I always wanted to be a telecom engineer, so that was all planned, and I went and did my engineering, and then worked in the corporate sector, joined Nokia as a telecom engineer, and then graduated from operations to pre-sales to technology consulting, and finally to sales. To finally realize in 2014 that this hostel market that we got exposed to through a random trip to Europe with one of our friends was a crazy idea that we felt should be available to young Indians in India. We just felt very strongly for a young Pankaj or a young Pallavi, my co-founder and my wife, to have had access to these cool, branded, youthful, social living spaces when we were growing up. And we said, we're not going to let that opportunity go. And I think that is the time when India was really rising. We were this one first millennial generation which entered workforce and got access to these lemon tree and Sarovar hotels, which didn't exist, smart hotels. We sort of felt proud of having a homegrown brand which was giving quality branded sort of a lifestyle choice to people like us. And we said we're going to deliver this to even younger audience, which is 18 to 30-year old. And then the rest is history. And we started, sort of started with copying the global youth hostel concept in Europe, in Varanasi, and then realizing how different is the requirement of the Indian youth, and adapting that global template to what the Indian youth would like in a youth hotel reimagined for Indian young people. So we sort of took a few years till 2019 to figure out what the Indian youth hostel should look like. How are we going to expand this? What sort of business model are we going to use to create these hostels out of nowhere? And what GTM, what go to market are we going to use to make sure that this category creation happens in an accelerated pace? And then once we were sure with all of these three things is when in 2019 we raised our first round of funding. And
Mm.
then despite the 2 years of COVID, I think COVID couldn't really affect us much. And COVID sort of gave us, in fact, a boost to really accelerate our growth. And we have grown rapidly, almost 6x in the last 2.5 years during COVID. And now we are almost at about 35 crore of annual revenue and about 2,600 beds. And we are the largest Indian hostel brand in the country, leading in creating this category and pioneering this category. And we wish that we could blow this category into a 100,000 bed category in the next 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And what is also caught my attention is during COVID, your business multiplied 6 times. Vis-a-vis, I was having another guest last week from who live. And just look at the template. Okay, there are these other hostel chains which got impacted because people left cities and went to their homes, and just a different context of a hostels which is meant for backpackers actually doubled. So very very interesting phenomenon there. And thanks for giving that summary. So while you gave that quick summary within a minute, I have detailed questions on each of them. Where did you travel, by the way? Whole of Europe, or because I live in Germany and I am very very aware of the backpackers hostel here. I was in Barcelona last year as well. I lived in a hostel very consciously to get the vibe of the current generation and how the entire hostels work. Which countries did you travel, and
So,
which?
so there's an interesting story here, and I think I'll just take a minute to take you guys through the
Sure,
story
sure.
also. This idea was born out of a random trip, And whenever people ask me, "Hey, what do you advise people to do when they want to think of a business idea?" Mm, I tell them that there's no answer in thinking or overthinking. The answer is to doing and then finding out, where it leads you. And today also, we don't spend too much time thinking. Obviously, 20% time is thought is spent thinking, but the rest is you find the answers as you go along.
Right.
So this was this random trip to Europe that we took. A friend of mine just said, "Hey, I just take a random trip to Europe once every year to meet my girlfriend who's in Europe. And would you want to accompany me?" I said, "Okay," not knowing where we are traveling.
Mhm.
And and we were corporate people working with Nokia and Ericsson and staying in Sheratons, and Aeroflot was blacklisted because it had a lot of delays and baggage lost, etc. So we never got to know the backpacking side of things.
Mm.
And just taking that chance with a random backpacking trip where this friend of mine just went online, would go to Skyscanner and look at the cheapest return flight from Delhi to whatever destination he could find, and he booked us to Budapest.
Ah.
And we landed in Budapest, and then we went to Verona, Venice in Italy,
Mm.
Salzburg and Innsbruck in Austria, and
Mhm.
then Ljubljana, Bohinj, and Bled in Slovenia.
Yes.
And stayed at hostels, and we were like, "What is this? Where have you booked us?" And crazy different formats of hostels is what we got exposed to.
Right.
And I remember there was this specific moment in this hostel that we stayed in Salzburg, where we
Mm.
went for a recreation sort of a trip during the day. And when we came back, we heard loud noises coming from this common area somewhere. And we
Mm.
went in to find young college students who were volunteers and who were making cocktails out of these Tetra Pak juice boxes.
Mhm.
And everyone was just sharing their stories, and we had like a zillion friends in half an hour. And I remember I and Pallavi were sitting on that bar stool, and Pallavi said, "Nothing like this exists in India." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Pallavi, why? There are so many hotels in India. What are you saying?" She said,
Mhm.
"Tell me one hotel where there is a big table where everyone is sitting on this big table and sharing stories like this. You would have small tables where everyone's sitting in different groups. But where is a social hotel in India?" Oh,
Mhm.
and that was the eureka moment. And I think that is when Pallavi decided that she wanted to bring hostels to India.
Mhm.
And then we just,
And what
yeah,
was what was Pallavi doing at that time?
so Pallavi is a consumer behavior research specialist. She
Ah,
specializes in qualitative consumer behavior research. So
nice.
she had spent about 8 years of her corporate career advising brands on how consumers are perceiving their brands on a qualitative level and how that is affecting their psyche. So
Got it.
this business is also primarily based on consumer insights, because
Yes,
we will
definitely.
only know what young people want and what they are willing to trade off what is more important to them and what is not.
Got it.
So people
So
are trading a room to a bed in lieu of the social interaction and a lifestyle choice that they get being a part of this youth hostel brand.
got it. So at that time, did you do some research? So were there no youth hostels back in India at all, or were you the first ones, or there were already some players, but may not be major players?
So we came back from this trip in about May of 2012, May, June of 2012.
Hmm.
And then September of 2012 is when we wanted to do research.
Hmm.
And I found out that there was this one hostel, small hostel, which was opened in India, in Goa, called the Asterix Hostel. There was no other hostel in India till then.
Got it.
And it was opened by one of my classmates from Delhi Public School, Vasant Kunj, Ambar Jalan.
Hmm.
And we went there and we asked them, hey, how is this business looking like? They're like, it seems like there's a lot of latent demand and we don't know who. Right now, there are just foreign backpackers coming and Indian youth doesn't know of the youth hostel concept. So right now, we're just full and brimming with just young foreign backpackers. But
Hmm.
if one was to do an outreach to the Indian audience and to customize this product for the Indian audience, we think the market could really explode.
Hmm.
So that was the only hostel that existed at that point of time.
Nice. And what was from idea to execution? How was your journey? Like, what all did you do? Did you raise funds, or did you? First of all, this is again a lot of upfront cost, right? So hostels is something that either you lease an existing building, or you build of your own. So how did you go about starting your first hostel? You
So
mentioned
we
Varanasi was the first one, right?
That's right. That's right. We went about leasing the property, and our obvious choices, would have been Delhi or Manali or a Varanasi. But we chose Varanasi, one, because we couldn't afford to do a pilot in a place like Delhi where real estate
Mhm.
costs are very high.
Right.
And then out of Manali and Varanasi, like I said, then at that time, the most obvious customer was the foreign backpacker.
Right.
We just felt that Varanasi had a lot more to offer and was a quintessential Indian experience, and one could really build a brand around experiences and cultural heritage. So,
Hmm.
which is why we chose Varanasi and we started our first one there by leasing the property and transforming it.
And did you have something in mind with the kind of property that would suit you? Did you already have a brand and a design and a feel and a vibe that you wanted to bring to your first property, or you wanted to do a test run and then maybe look at brand in the future? How was it like? How did your test run go?
So, so I think at that point of time, like I was from the telecom industry and Pallavi was from the branding side of things. We didn't really know much about hospitality, and we felt that, and we didn't know the difference between different real estate classes, etc. For us, a building was a building.
Right.
And we said, hey, a joint family house could be it could be a very interesting space to build a hostel. Like I said, in Salzburg, we were inspired by this large table where everyone was sitting and facing each other, right? So
Hmm.
we said a joint family house is actually made with the point of allowing people their privacy while everyone comes together in the common space in between. There is an angan in between and there are
Right.
rooms around it.
Right.
So we said, hey, we're going to take this large, 10 room joint family bungalow and we're going to convert that into a youth hostel, which is what we did in Varanasi. And
Hmm.
then we realized regulations around it. And in Varanasi, we were fortunate that it was quite easy for us to apply for a Sarai Act license and get a Sarai Act license. So we, even though it is a community sort of a living space, but it does fall under the rules and regulations under the category of a hotel or a lodge or a guest house. So
Hmm.
one has to take the licenses of a hotel or a guest house to operate such a property.
Hmm.
So we took a Sarai Act license. But then when we started thinking of scalability, we said even though a joint family house seems all good from the point of view of allowing people to socialize, but from scalability point of view, you can't just go about taking these houses and applying for fresh licenses everywhere, or equipping a residential building with new plumbing, with new electrical infrastructure, with diesel generators and whatnot, which obviously became requirement as the consumer became discerning and said, we will have to go to commercial existing real estate, hotel real estate. And we said, oh, there is this category of hotel real estate which already lies in this country, which is called long tail hotel supply, which is hotels which are 20 to 40 rooms in size. There is currently no operator which is willing to operate hotels of this size. You have the Hiltons and the Marriotts who are willing to operate anything above 100 keys. You have the Lemon Tree and the Sarovar which are willing to manage properties which are 50 to 100 rooms. But if you're a SME business owner and you have built a hotel asset which is 10 to 50 rooms in size, you don't have an operator to come and operate your hotel. So we said there are 350,000 rooms lying in this real estate asset class, and we want to build hostels. And what better way than going after this large asset category and just transforming it and building our hostels on top of it.
So,
So
so when
that
you're
is
saying there is no operator, the hotels are still being operated by, but like in a mom and pop store fashion, right? So they are okay. There is no major operator who is managing all these 30 to 40 beds
Yes. So,
hotels.
which is why in 2014-15 is when Oyo, Tribo, and Fab came in and said, we are going to organize this unorganized sector of long tail hotel supply. But
Mm,
they did not take the operator route. They took the franchising route or the aggregation route. So, they at least gave them some branding, some standardization,
mm,
and gave them access to centralized revenue management and marketing.
got it.
But the real problem wasn't service delivery. The real problem is who is going to manage and operate and deliver service quality at the ground level.
Oh,
Because
that's a good one.
yeah,
Okay, so again, very very interesting. So what you are saying is, even if Oyo brings a mom and pop store hotel under its wing, give it the branding, somebody has to still operate and make it profitable, right?
yeah.
Obviously, they might get some organic traffic through Oyo, but still but Oyo also commits to the end experience, no? That they guarantee minimum kind of experience, minimum cleanliness, and but not on the kind of vision that you had for a hostel. Maybe
No,
maybe that was
they do stand for a certain level of quality,
right.
but and they do promise that to their consumer.
Mm,
But you can only deliver that if you are a full stack operator. No, if you have control over the last mile operation,
mhm,
uh, you don't have control over the last mile operation because, and it's not like I'm trying to say Oyo Tribo Fab are not solving a large problem. They
yeah.
these long tail hotel supply owners did not have access to professional revenue management, which is what these
Mm,
guys have given them, did not have access to professional marketing, did not have professional access to branding, did not have professional access to standardization and transformation, which is
mm,
fabulous. But ultimately, operations, you see, these long tail hotel supply hotels are owned by SME business owners. Say one is running a white cement distribution business in Uttar Pradesh, or another one is running a thread factory in Jalandhar,
mm.
and then they made business money out of that business, and then they built a 20-room hotel because they made money out of that business. Where do you invest? And real estate is a great category.
I see.
Now, till about say 2008 2010, it was possible to operate it with say some local guy, or asking the ladies of the house to operate that hotel, take
Mm,
minimal care, etc., etc,
mm,
because you could deliver bad service also and
mm,
get make money because your hotel was right in front of the gate of the railway station or right on the bus stop. You will always make money.
got
But
it.
what changed in 2008 and 10 is that the percentage of bookings happening online started going higher. So
Mm,
the information asymmetry
mm,
changed. Now the
mm.
consumer already knew whether you are a good service operator or a bad service operator. So now, irrespective of your location, people will not
Location.
come to you if you don't give service.
Got it.
So, which is when Oyo Tribo Fab solved the visibility problem, but ultimately still left the operator problem for someone
Mm,
else to solve. So, we
got
are trying to do a full stack sort of ownership of the youth segment that we are going after.
got it. Got it. First of all, is long tail hotels a term in the industry?
Yes, yes, you will find a lot of Ritesh Agarwal's interviews where he
Ah,
uses the term very frequently, long
long
tail.
tail. Okay, long tail. So I understand what long tail means in this context. Okay, great, excellent. By the way, so okay, and then did you raise money at that time? Like how did your Varanasi experiment go? Like how long did you? When did you have some metrics to say, okay, this is now a success. Now replicate this success on scale. Is this how you felt, or did you raise the money? Could you tell me your early scale up story?
So for us, the only indicator of success in a business is profitability.
Mm.
And as long as there is profitability, we think it is successful and it is good enough to replicate. So Varanasi was operationally positive from month one. So April 2014 is when we launched, and month one we were positive. So from April to say December, we ran the Varanasi operation, and we kept seeing it perform beautifully. And we said, now it's the time to scale. So then we started looking for properties in Delhi, and we operationalized our Delhi property in April of 2015. And then it did well. Then we said, oh, now we have done two properties where we have, and Varanasi was a joint family house where we took the new license. Then we said, no, now we are going to move to a hotel building. So we took a large hotel building in Delhi, a 26-room hotel building in Delhi, which was run by Comfort Inn before us, and we
Mm.
converted it into a goSTOPS hostel. And we said, okay, now this problem is solved. We know which hotel category we are going after. Then
Mm.
we said, now the problem to solve is, if I have to, we went up till 2. Now if I have to go to from 2 to 10, are you going to invest capex everywhere? What
Mhm.
is the model going to be? Are you
Yeah.
going to operate everywhere? So
Mm.
then we said, now we have to test and operate multiple models. So we opened ourselves up to franchise owned company operated model,
Mm.
franchise owned franchise operated model,
Mm.
franchise owned company managed model, and the coco model was already there, that first two that we did.
Mm.
So we experimented with these different models to realize which model works best for us.
Mm. Got it. By the way, could you, because this is all about, so when you're an operator, you have to have a keen eye on your branding. You cannot afford to dilute your branding. You have to have a persona, and there has to be a consistency. Just like any franchisee is, right? So they need to. So, how did you, what was your vision? How did you ensure that you execute on your branding? Maybe some ideas there.
So, Ravi, I and Pallavi have felt that marketing and branding, say 80% of branding and marketing is actually um, the walking the talk. Is so
Mm.
you may do a lot of sort of communication around what your brand stands for and what your brand language is, persona is, etc. But if the consumer walks into your product and ultimately feels dissatisfied, all of that
Mm.
communication is a waste. and
Mm.
and it sort of has a repeated effect and unnecessarily, and at the end your brand value will dilute irrespective of how loud you shout. So
Mhm.
we felt that the most important bit in terms of branding, marketing, and creating viral word of mouth retention and consumption
Mhm.
for our product was
Mm.
how happy are customers walking out of our hostels. So that
Mm.
is what we used as the metric initially. And even
Mm.
right now, our marketing budgets are close to zero, all very minimal marketing budgets for
Ah,
now.
I see.
And we're
Okay.
almost doing about 4 crore of revenue every month.
Mm.
So many people, 30,000 people, unique people walking into our hostels every month, paying us 500, 600 rupees for a bed night, which is aggregating to about 4 crore rupees every single month.
Mm.
So with zero marketing.
Right.
So, so we feel that the strongest marketing
Mm.
is first, and any prerequisite to doing any marketing is first you make sure that your product stands up to the message that you're going to tell the consumer. So
Mhm.
the metric that we have followed till now is the net promoter score, is NPS.
Mhm.
How happy or unhappy is the customer walking out of our product?
Okay. So what are some of the delighters to ensure that your NPS goes up? Maybe you could share a bit about the goSTOPS experience. What do you offer as goSTOPS customer?
Yeah. So see, number one delighter, according to me, is consistency of experience. Is
Mm.
irrespective of in Masuri, if I start giving out chocolates, I have to make sure that I'm giving out chocolates in the rest 32 properties also. So
Mm.
number one delighter is consistency.
Okay.
No matter how good a lemon tree in Palampur is, unless all lemon trees are similar quality, you will not appreciate the brand lemon tree, right? So
Mm.
consistency is most important for me first. Second, I think in terms of delighter, uh, first and foremost problem for us to solve, and I think it is a big one. It is not easily solvable. Is very high quality hygiene standards across the
Mm.
property. I know everyone says that hygiene is hygiene, but the fact is in India in hotels, hygiene, maintaining hygiene, as hygiene is a lot of hard work. It's not very easy.
Mm. Right.
So, so I think setting very high standards of hygiene for young people, because they have been used to staying at very shady, unorganized hotels in
Mm.
really shady places across the country. I think
Mm.
first thing they deserve, besides all the coolness of our product, is very high quality hygiene. And I
Mm.
think that has held us in good stead post COVID also.
Mm.
Then it's like I said, consistency. So consistency means if I have promised that I am going to give you an AC dorm, it is very important that the AC must function all the time. Just making sure that every single air conditioner works all the time is not easy job. We have our operations team comprises our we have, by the way, 33 hotels.
Mhm.
We're about 450 people strong. Out of 450 people, 350 people are on the ground, 100 people in the center. Out
Mhm.
of 100 people in the center, 40 people are dedicated to the operations team. Operations team will be categorized into engineering, IT, housekeeping, customer service, etc., etc., quality assurance.
Mhm.
So engineering team within the operations team is responsible for making sure that you get good quality of water pressure in your shower, gets good enough air temperature control when you walk into that room. So I am not, I think what I'm trying to get at is that the delighter is in making sure that the basics work, and you're
Mm.
not just talking about them.
I can imagine, because if you go to a hotel beyond a certain standard, okay, you expect that things would be broken. You expect that people would queue at the lobby, or at the service desk, asking them, "Hey, mera ye toot gaya hai, wo toot gaya hai," and stuff like that. This is what the mental vision is, that that below a certain standard of hotels, or budget,
Hmm.
it's a broken experience.
Yeah.
And if you ensure that everything works, then that itself becomes a delighter. So i
Yeah.
i I tend to agree to that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the thing is, we are actually not a cheap hotel. Some people have asked me, "Hey, you have such a cheap product. It's so cheap." The fact is, we're the most expensive hotel in the country, because one bed, okay, right now our ADRs are touching about 1,000 rupees. Now, one bed in an 8-bed dorm, the customer is paying 1,000 rupees, which means we are charging 8,000 rupees for one room. How is it
Mm.
a budget category anymore? But the
Mhm.
point is that and that person can get a bed somewhere else for 200 rupees. He's not taking that bed for 200. He can get a private room in Paharganj for 400, 500 rupees. That person is paying double that amount, 1,000 rupees, to take one bed in that dorm. Why? Because that person wants very high quality hospitality service to be delivered to him. And sharing economy is only a business model by which we are promising and sort of, trying to ensure that we bring very, very high quality Hilton, Marriott, Taj, Ginger, Bloom type hospitality service in the reach of these people in less than 1,000 rupees a night.
That's true. Yeah, that's amazing. Reminds me of democratizing flights, when they first happened. Okay, low cost, but people were given great service. Okay, not great perks, but great service. Okay.
Yes.
um Excellent. Sounds great. Yeah, so what about, so when you were scaling, maybe a little bit about your funding story. Did you, so you said that, okay, do we give it give in capex early on, while we are scaling, or what was the model that you had? Did you have revenue sharing with your asset owners, or what were the different models that you have?
So we spent a few years experimenting with all the possible models in this industry.
Mm.
One is a pure COCO, which is what I talked about in Delhi, Varanasi, where you go lease a building, invest the capex, and you pay the landowner a rent, and you operate. The PNL is yours. Very simple. The second model is called FOCO, where you go to the landlord and you say, "Hey, I'm not going to take the building in the shape that it is today. I would
Mm.
like you to refurbish it, transform it to my specifications. And
Mm.
guess what? Rather than giving you X rent, I'm going to give you X plus delta X rent.
Mm.
And the PNL is still with me. So I'm going to
Mm.
make sure that the property runs in profit." The third one is the one that all the large hotel chains like Hilton and Marriott use, which is called a management contract, which is also called an
Mm.
FOCM, franchise owned, company managed, where
Mm.
the franchise or the landowner invests the capex, makes the building ready for your use, and you operate, bringing your central team sort of into action. But the P&L of the hotel still lies with the property owner. So if the property does
mm,
not do well, the loss is of the property owner. And if it does well, then you take a certain percentage of the management fees. So you actually take a fees rather than the landowner taking a fees, because the P&L belongs to the owner.
mm,
And then the third one is a pure FOFO, which is what Oyo Tribo Fab do, which is
mm,
franchise owned, franchise operated. You
mm,
invest in the building and you operate it, and the P&L is all yours. And I
mm,
will give you some guidance from our central team in terms of how to operate. I will do marketing for you. I will do revenue management and customer sourcing for you.
mm. Did you, so when you mentioned about Oyo, do you also have Oyo assets? No.
A lot of our landlords or existing hotel buildings were earlier with Oyo,
Uh-huh.
because Oyo is a great solution to solve 50-60% of the problem. You know, like I said, marketing, branding,
Yes,
standardization.
getting organic traffic and stuff like that. Okay, so and but Oyo would be an operator of a different kind, and then you would still be with Oyo for the regular operations. Is that how it is, or you get rid of? Okay,
No, no,
so
no,
they have to get
no.
rid of Oyo before they can sign up with you, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Because the P&L does not belong to them anymore. The P&L is completely owned by us.
Ah, I see. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yes, funding. What about funding? So, did
Yeah.
you? How has the
So
journey been over years?
So, like I said, we tried all of these models and we spent time till 2019 to figure which model will we want to scale with, and will we be able to scale quickly in the most capital efficient manner, and yet maintain the service quality that we want to maintain, so that we can tempt a large part of the young consumer to this new category, and this category can be created out of sheer love of the consumer.
Mm,
So we figured in by 2019 that a franchise operated model does not work for us. What
mm,
works for us is finally a company operated model. So either it's going to be a company owned, company operated model where we will
mm,
invest the capex and we'll operate it,
mm,
or the landowner invests the capex, gives us a ready unit, but we will operate it end to end on our P&L. So we
mm,
said FOCM, FOFO does not work for us. So
mm,
only after the model was clear, the consumer and the market that we were going after, and our GTM was clear, because we took some time to open the product up to the Indian distribution channels. It's not easy to just open up hostels on GoIBibo, Booking.com. So they didn't even have a category called hostels at that point of time. We worked
mm,
with them to create hostels. They didn't have a term called bed. You could never book a hotel by bed. So
mm,
we had to work with the technology stack vendors. We worked with a Surat-based company called Easy Technosys to define that a property management system has to be categorized by room, and then within a room there have to be beds, and
mm.
every bed has to be mapped to a room entity on the OTA. So
Right.
that was amazing. Then we worked with OTA to say, hey, guess what? We've solved the PMS and the CMS side. Now on your end, can you please solve this problem and make a room a bed? So they
Mm,
started doing all of that. Then when we started opening it up to the Indian consumer, Indian consumers got confused. They thought when they have booked a 8-bed dorm means they have booked 8 rooms. We had to tell them, no, you haven't booked 8 rooms. You had So a lot of education. We would usually at that point of time in 2016, when people would make a booking, immediately we would send them out an email which was titled, "We want to let you know what you have gotten yourself into." We wanted to tell them what this new concept is, and we offered free cancellation. Just in case you've made a mistake, feel free to just call us and we'll cancel your stay. We don't want you to have a bad experience. And then some would walk in and then would feel uncomfortable, saying, oh, this is a bed and I don't feel privacy. Some of the issues we solved, like we sort of put curtains on the bed, etc. But we saw the same consumer, after staying here and cribbing a little bit, became a repeat consumer, because it took some time for the model to grow on them, and then they would develop more
mm,
consumers, etc.
mm. Only
So we
somebody who is sensitized to the hostel culture in the Europe would appreciate it, but for
Yes.
others, it has to grow gradually, isn't it?
or
Uh,
and both sides had to come midway. We had to take some steps to make it more comfortable for the Indian consumer, and the
mm,
Indian consumer also, and educate the Indian consumer, and the Indian consumer also took some getting used to. So for example, like I said, hostels in Europe don't have curtains on the beds. We put curtains on the bed. We were the first hostel with standardized curtains on the bed to create some sense of privacy in the room.
mm,
Hostels in Europe, which we brought first to India, usually have a pantry area. They don't have F&B offering, and where people cook their own food. Indian
Yes.
youth is not used to cooking their own food, and they would like to be served food. So we
Right.
had to sort of innovate on our F&B offering. Or
Mm.
hostels in Europe, you have to lay your own bed. In India, people would expect that your bed is laid out.
We are
So
primarily a service-based country, right? So that's why, yeah.
yes. Yes. So all of that tweaking to the global template happened. And like I said, the business model exploration happened. So by 2019, we knew what we were doing. And
Mm.
that is when we raised a small angel round where Nitish Mitterson of Nazara Technologies invested, a couple of other sort of important people put trust in the company. And then we quickly raised a follow on round from One Crowd, which is a micro VC fund in Mumbai, in January. And in March, we were hit with COVID. So we raised about $1 million, and then we got hit with COVID, and we didn't
Mm.
know what to do.
Mm.
So we sort of hunkered down from March till July,
Mm.
and we sort of ensured that we kept working on our technology evolution stuff, and maintaining our properties, making sure that our ground teams had food on the table. So making sure that everyone in the ground team would come for 10 days each, so that everyone gets at least one third salary and no one sort of starves. So
Mm.
taking care of properties, taking care of people, taking care of the rest of the infrastructure that we had. And then 27 20 2020 August, when we opened up, we thought that the market would have completely changed, and people should not be staying in dormitories
Mm.
because physical separation was the norm. And
Mm.
we converted a lot of our dormitories into private rooms, and we
Mm.
left the dormitories, we converted them into group dorms. We said we will only allow groups to check into a dormitory if you are
Ah,
coming as one group, but
got
we
it.
will now not allow for
Different
you.
groups to intermingle. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So we did that. And I
Mm.
remember particularly, and August 1st is when we did that. And I remember specifically on 17th of August, we got a call from this one consumer who had arrived at our hostel in Amritsar, and he was
Mm.
standing at the door, and somehow he found out my number, and he
Mm.
called me. And he
Mm.
said, because we have these posh policy documents, put up at our reception, and there on the posh committee, my name is also there. So he found out my phone number, and he
Mm.
called me. And he said, "What have you guys done? I am a loyal goSTOPS customer, and you guys have stopped me from staying in a dormitory. Now I will have to take a private room." I told him my concern that, this is how COVID is, and this is how. So he's like, "Okay, so do you mean that after COVID, I should stop going in trains and buses, and I should buy my own private vehicle and travel only by car?
Mm.
I have come to your hostel on train, in a bus, because that is the only way I can afford to come to Amritsar. So
Mm.
now you are saying that just because COVID has happened, I will have to take a private room. If
Mm.
that was the case, then everything should have changed." And that sort of really hit me. And I said, "Oh, you know what? Uh, Sharing economy is nowhere to go, because sharing economy is not cool or just social. Sharing economy is the fundamental basis for making very high quality products and services accessible to people within their budgets. So
Hmm.
if I was
It's
to
not
not
compromise.
do
It's not compromise on. It's not compromise on standards. It's not compromise. It's actually same standards, but got
elevating the standard.
elevating the standard. Okay.
Yeah, what you could get for 500 rupees, I'm trying to bring a 4,000 rupee worth of service in your reach in 500 rupees, because now you're willing to share.
Mm. Nice.
Just like buses, trains, aeroplanes, they work because 100 people fill up that aeroplane, and now you can afford to have that ticket for 5,000 rupees.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
so that is what sort of changed our perspective, and we said quickly go back to the standard concept and actually elevate the hygiene. And at that time, I think we took steps. We initially opened it up as a bio bubble. So we said, once you enter, you will have to come with a COVID test, and once you enter, we will not let you go out and sort of eat out, etc., etc. So are you willing to sort of follow these norms? And then as positivity rate went down, we relaxed the norms. As positivity rate went high, we sort of made the norms more stringent, and we
Right.
survived through COVID. And in COVID, so like you mentioned about who live, all of these young audience, which were our consumers who were living in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, etc., they got work from home.
Mm.
And the only way for them was to either go back to their hometowns, say in Patna or in Lucknow or in Jaipur, um, where they quickly got fed up that living with parents, the parents are asking too many questions, they're making me do homely chores. And internet connection doesn't work, but bijli chale jati and whatnot. And then suddenly they said, oh, you don't know, even if you take precautions, the people who are most vulnerable is your parents and grandparents and young children in the house, in your joint family house back home. So
mm,
actually, by by being there, they're putting these vulnerable age groups at risk. So
mm,
this young audience said, I am not going to go back to home. I am going
mm,
to do a vacation out of Manali or
mm,
Masuri or Ladakh or wherever. And they just formed bases in these places. And
mm,
they came and they sort of lived at our hostels in bio bubbles. And we
mm,
had these people and we were hosting them for long periods of time. And we launched vacation packages. And we sort of were leading the demand on the leisure real estate side,
mm,
because no other age group was traveling as much, because everyone had attachments.
mm,
Just a second. So
mm,
every other age group, if you're 30 to 50-year old, you have kids to take care of, or you have parents to take care of, or you have a house where you're paying rent and you have all the infrastructure and you can't just leave the city.
mm,
Whereas 18 to 30 was the only age group who did not have any attachments. They had their furniture which they had taken on rent from Furlenco, which they returned back to Furlenco. They
mm,
had a apartment on rent which they quickly left. They could work from home from any place, and they just didn't want to put any other age group at risk, and they were at all of these places.
mm,
So we sort of could pay much higher rents for the pieces of real estate during COVID, and we said this is the best time for us to expand our supply base. So
mm,
that is when we pressed our pedal on the supply expansion, and which is when we grew 6x, and that is when we raised most of our follow-on funding rounds.
mm,
So January 20 is when we raised the one crowd round. May 21, we raised $1 million, which was led by Indian Angel Network and Huge Ventures. Um, November 21, in another 6 months, we raised another $1 million, which was led by Chennai Angels. And then another
mm.
6 months, May 22, we raised another $1 million, which was led by Mumbai Angels. And
Right.
now we're hitting the market for a Series A. So
Got
we've
it.
raised about $4 million till date.
Got it. So on the investors' interest, what is that thing that caught their fancy? Was it? I mean, it is still an operational heavy, okay, but is it the margins that were impressive? Is it the growth? Because even if it is growth, mostly investors are interested in tech businesses. Maybe that is also a follow-up question that I have: how much of your operations are tech enabled, so that you drive on efficiency and stuff like that? But help me understand, what were the key triggers for them to go ahead and be with invest in you?
So I think the biggest key trigger is one, the identification of the need gap. Uh, one has
A
to
new a
appreciate
new category, maybe, right? You
a
created a
new
new
category.
category. Mm,
Yeah, and the category being large. This is not a small category. This is not a men's grooming category. This is youth um, travel and living category. And what is the
mm,
size of the youth we are talking? 18 to 35-year-old, 370 million people. Out of
mm,
those 370 million people, one would assume a lot of them are rural and will not travel. But the fact is that 210 million people out of those 370 million people today take at least one trip every single year.
mm,
So that's 210 million trips a year.
mm,
60% of total domestic trips taken in the country is done by 18 to 35-year-old customer.
mm.
So it is such a large market, and you are building a hotel which is completely reimagined for this audience specifically.
Oh yeah, it just catches their fancy because something for them, exclusively designed for them. Okay, otherwise they have to fit in. They
Yeah,
have to fit in into environments which is not meant for them. But you're creating an environment just for them, so that is a
yeah.
draw, the natural draw. My question to you is, go to market. Is it from the regular OTAs that they get to know about your facilities, or do you go beyond? Do you have your independent channel? How do people? Because of course, because I stay outside India, I would not know. But are people aware, and how are they aware about this concept?
So OTA is a very strong customer acquisition channel for us, and still today, about 60% of our sales comes from online travel agents, and
Mm,
40% comes from direct channels.
mhm,
So say a young consumer who has not heard of hostels would
Mm,
essentially be going on a GoIBibo or a
mm.
Booking.com or a Make My Trip and searching for a hotel and would put a filter less than 1,000 rupees, and
Got
he
it.
would come across so many unorganized, shady hotels, and then
Mm.
we suddenly see a professionally listed, colorful GoSTOPS listing for
Color.
600 rupees and
Right.
very highly rated. And then that guy would go in and sort of look at the pictures, and then that person would be like, "Oh, this looks crazy. Maybe
Mm,
I should try it." And so many people have already tried it and left a great review. I should try it. And
got it.
then when they come and stay with us, they sort of either fall in love, and we had about 40% repeat ratio. So 40% of people who walk into our hotel stay with us at least one more time in the next 12 months.
Mm,
So they fall in love with the product and they stay with us again. And next time when they come stay with us, chances are that they usually come in through our direct channels,
mm,
because now they know about direct channels and now they've become a loyal customer. And
mm,
then we also have our normal retention sort of marketing that we do, which is through the community that we have over social media, where we would keep them engaged and
got it.
make sure that our brand is on top of their mind.
Got it.
And now we're and we also maintain this community in the form of travel groups over WhatsApp and in Telegram. And these people, for so many years, have stayed on that Telegram group and never left, and they keep asking questions to each other, saying,
Mm.
"Hey, next week I'm going to be in GoSTOPS Rishikesh. Who else is going to be in Rishikesh?" And they're like, "I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. Okay, okay. Who's
Ah,
willing
nice.
to?" So we saw that they really like interacting within the community,
Mm,
asking, obviously making plans with each other, and also asking questions and saying, "Hey, have you been to Leh recently? Do you know how bad the road is right now?" And other
mm,
people are like, "Yes, yes, it's good, etc." So now what we're doing, this, I think by the end of this month, we will launch our mobile app. And
mm,
that on that mobile app, besides all the service delivery features that we're bringing in, which is where we are sort of allowing people to order food and experience at the hostel, be able to chat with other people staying in the hostel on the mobile app, and you don't have to be in
mm,
the physical common area all the time to be able to chat and make plans,
mm,
and also sort of replace the conventional phone based customer support, and calling the reception and saying, "Hey, can you fix the bulb?" And then the guy is never to be seen and there is no accountability for the guy. We are
mm,
actually putting it on a service delivery engine, and we're replacing it with the same support that this consumer is used to on a Swiggy or a Zomato, and saying,
mm,
"Hey, I want to make sure that you get my order on time, or you call the delivery guy and make sure that the delivery is done."
mm,
And then there is a service delivery engine at the back, and there's a TAT associated with it, and the person is responsible for making sure that you deliver that service. So besides bringing all of these service quality features, we're also consolidating all of our Telegram and WhatsApp based communities over a centralized community feature on the mobile app. So now the mobile app will allow us to keep in touch with this consumer and allow the community to stay in touch with
Bro.
each other all
Mm,
the time. So once you walk into a GoSTOPS hostel, you will actually become a loyal GoSTOPS.
that is amazing. And,
When you walk into the GoSTOPS hostel, you will obviously download the app because you want to gain most out of your experience in the hostel. And
mm,
then you will not want to delete the app because you want to have continuous access to that community. And
mm.
by virtue of that, you will always have GoSTOPS on the top of your mind, and you will become a more loyal repeat customer.
And it has also got to do with demographic. Okay, so this demographic is somebody who has the time, bandwidth, intent,
Yes.
passion, to stay around. Okay, vis-a-vis somebody who's a family man,
Yeah.
he would walk away. Okay, and then he would create a experience next time he's traveling. But here there
And
is a sense of continuity and
yeah.
and sense of belongingness, isn't it? Mm.
And native comfort to digital channels.
Native comfort would, so it's natural for them. It's their world.
Yeah.
Mm,
Imagine if I was to replace the phone based customer support with an app based customer support in
mm,
Marriott.
mm.
My grandparents will go berserk. They stay at Marriott. I may be
Mm,
happy, but my grandparents will go berserk. But I can do this because my consumer 100% is digitally native.
mm.
Yeah.
Nice. By the way, so you mentioned a point initially when you were quickly giving us a snapshot and a summary. You said that any business you need to jump into before. I mean, you can ideate all that you can, but you need to jump in and then learn the lessons the hard way, right? So this is hospitality. What you are managing is pure play hospitality. You are elevating experience, but you are not from the hospitality industry. It reminds me of the Airbnb guys when they got serious about it. They had to get advisors, very premium, high paying advisors from the hospitality industry. So did you get any kind of help, support from the hospitality industry, because you were not from this industry, or did you learn the hard way? Because this is, you're talking about heavy operations. You are ensuring everything works like a clockwork. How did you do it?
So I would assume that even people who get these advisors,
Hmm.
it's not like they learn from the advisors. I don't think it is humanly possible to learn. Every learning has to be the hard way. I don't think there is any learning the easy way. Every human has
I
to
will
go.
tell you this advice. I'll tell you, Airbnb guys. They hired Chip Conley. Chip Conley was one of the best hotelier in American San Francisco. Okay, he was a big guy, big shot. I mean, he's very famous also, and TED talks and stuff like that. They hired him. He wasn't part of the board, and he was responsible to transform the experience of Airbnb. So
Yeah.
I was talking about that kind of a advisor who is hands on.
Yeah. So definitely, goSTOPS, what it is today, it is not like Pankaj and Pallavi built this entire goSTOPS.
Mm,
We only had an idea. We only had the courage and the madness to jump into it and give it some shape and form. And now there are so many industry professionals who are in our company and who are leading different verticals of the company, and I can't do even 10% good job as they can do in F&B or in IT or in operations.
mm,
So our role is to dream, is to make sure that we have the courage and we give the courage to the rest of the team to be able to take risks and do something new,
mm,
and to be able to continuously course correct and communicate our strategic direction to all of these stakeholders who know best how to do it. So,
mm,
if someone in F&B comes up to me and says, you know, um, should we start cooking barbecue in our hostels? I'm like, yeah, sure, that's a great experience. Then they're like, you know what, but mint chutney, can we have, and we have a very unique sort of frozen and retort packaged F&B. So we have no kitchens in our hostels, but we have full menus where we serve F&B, because we have retort packaged food which has higher shelf life, and we assemble all of that just like a McDonald's does or anyone else does.
mm,
So it's the only model you can use to scale up and give consistent quality of food. Now, if this
mm,
F&B person comes to me and says, hey, what about the mint chutney? Mint chutney is such a small thing. Can I make my managers at the hostel just make fresh mint chutney? I have
mm,
to come and say, no, dude, I know it's just mint chutney. And today you can, do this, but it's not scalable. You have to find a retort package solution to mint chutney, because tomorrow this mint chutney is going to become tamarind chutney and is going to become thousand other chutneys. And
mm,
you have to stick to the model that we're going up. So we are just sort of setting the strategic direction,
mm.
um, giving the courage to the rest of team to take leaps and risks. That is all that Pankaj and Pallavi's role is now.
Got it. Got it. And then, by the way, I was just curious. Were you already there when the movie Queen came out?
Yes, so we launched in 2014 March, and I
Mm,
think Queen sort of launched about the same time.
mm,
And right about that time, we got a lot of interest from these media houses, because the Queen movie had come out, and suddenly they wanted to write about hostels. They had not heard about us, but they heard about Queen movie and the hostels,
okay.
and they called us and they said, "Hey, we are writing this article about Queen, and we want to talk about hostels in India. Will you?" And we were like, "What better timing to open a hostel?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Hollywood sort of comes with you."
I'm sure Queen did a lot of education for the Indian youngsters, at least. Of course, they would have prompted them or tempted them to travel abroad, but at least the hostel concept of hostel was, they were sensitized to the idea, isn't it? Cool. How's the sector looking like? You are one of the prominent players. Are there others catching up to this trend as well? Are you aware of this sector?
Yes. There are other players, and there are lots of smaller players also, which are trying to sort of gain scale. So this ecosystem, this industry, again, has not been created by Pankaj and Pallavi. It has been created by multiple stakeholders.
Right.
In terms of the primary, larger chains which are trying to sort of pioneer the creation of this category, we are joined by Zostel. We are joined by another player called the Hosteler. These two, although we are today India's biggest, but we're joined by these two large chains in creating awareness around youth hostel category.
What are
And then,
these players? What are they
so
into? Hostelier, and what do they do?
they are also similar to us, which are youth backpacking hostels, youth travel hostels.
Mm-hmm.
So just like goSTOPS is a brand in this space, the other two prominent brands are Zostel and the Hosteler.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these three large brands which are trying to create awareness in this category, and then there are other smaller brands also which are sort of gaining traction and sort of pushing the category forward. And then there are a lot of other single or two hostel owners which are trying to do their bit within the ecosystem.
Okay. Talk about tech, because as I said, this is operational heavy. You definitely want to optimize on efficiency. So do you? So you mentioned about the app that you are building. Maybe you could talk a bit about your tech stack, where all you have enabled yourself with tech.
So yeah, so if you build any business today,
Mm,
you can't build it without tech.
right.
Even if you're building a barber shop, you need tech. Even if you're building a pawn shop, you need tech.
Right.
We're building a hotel operator brand, and fortunately, we're building it for a consumer who's digitally native. So this
Mm,
places us in a very sweet spot where our tech stack doesn't have to limit to internal only, but
mm,
can actually extend all the way to the consumer, and we can make a lot of work to be done by the consumer for us rather than our internal organization doing it. For example, in Marriott, when you want to raise a support request, you pick up the phone and you tell, hey, I want the problem to be done. But now Marriott wants to make sure that the problem doesn't just get lost in midair or in verbal sort of communication, and is digitized and someone is held accountable for it. So they have to keep a person in the hotel who converts that phone call into a digital ticket on the ticketing system, and then there is a ticket management system on top. Here, my consumer, because of their comfort to the digital channel, I am empowering them through the consumer app. And I am
mm,
saying, raise the ticket on your own. I don't need this person in between to convert a phone call into a ticket. So
mm,
that's the efficiency. So I can really have an end-to-end tech stack and drive efficiencies end-to-end and make a lot of work to be done by the consumer himself,
mm,
or make a lot of work done by my employees themselves. For example,
mm,
expense management. Every single expense management across the organization is completely digitized.
mm,
We use a solution called Happy to be able to digitize cash expense management. We use several tech solutions to do our account payables management, to do our payroll management. We
mm,
have HRMS. We have financial ERP on Oracle.
mm,
And all of that is API integrated. So every single end-to-end expense, Pankaj and Pallavi don't even know when a
mm,
person asked for a cash request, because that cash request will go to their manager and then further to their manager. Automatically, they will get cash disbursed.
mm,
Similarly, reporting will happen to manager, grandfather manager, and then to finance, and it will get booked on the financial ERP, and we will get to see an MIS at the end of the month.
mm,
Similarly, service delivery I talked about. So a
mm,
customer request, whether they call us on our customer support channel on IVR, or on the mobile app, or on a chatbot on our website, or on
mm,
a WhatsApp chatbot, all of that gets logged on our CRM. And
mm,
on that CRM, that accountability flows from the CS agent to the, if it is an IT problem, goes to our central IT team. If it is a engineering problem, even if the person is just saying, water is not, the water pressure is not good enough in my shower,
mm.
it is logged on my CRM and then assigned to the engineering team and to the specific person on the job in that particular property, and they are given a tag and saying resolve it within this particular time.
Got it.
So there is a lot of technologies we're using.
What
Uh,
about efficiency in terms of vendor and supply? Because I think you're also, since you have so many properties, you would want that. Did I spill ink on my face? Yeah.
no,
You'd want vendors to similar kind of vendors, okay, so that there is standard beds and stuff like that. So do you maybe a bit about that vendor management?
so vendor management right now is not highly standardized, but the Oracle ERP that we have has the provision to sort of centralize all of that.
Mm,
Yeah, but I think we're not using that functionality as of now
okay,
because we have very limited vendors. There are only 4 or 5 vendors to whom we have to raise a PO, and right now we've been adding only about 4 to 5 hotels a month, which is very easy to do without a digital system also.
got it.
But
Okay.
as we scale, I think we will centralize it.
And how many cities are you in? Because this is unlike regular hostels. These are travel hostels, so that means location, destinations become all the more important, isn't it? Because there are some destinations which are more popular than others. Could you shed some light on which destinations are more popular, or which are going to be popular in the next few years and stuff like that?
So we are essentially a leisure hotel chain.
Mm,
uh, there are business hotel brands and there are leisure hotel brands. We're a primarily leisure hotel brand. So we are
mm,
everywhere where the young consumer goes for leisure. So if
mm,
you're in Delhi, you will go to Mussoorie, you will go to Nainital, you will go to Manali, and then you will also go to offbeat places like Naggar or Shangarh and so many other places, right? So we have sort of taken a conscious call to first expand to the high footfall destination where 85% of the consumer wants to travel. So
mm,
we have strong presence in markets like Rishikesh, in Mussoorie, in
mm,
Nainital, in Manali, in Jaipur, in Udaipur. So these are the bigger markets. And then
mm,
we will expand to medium footfall and lower footfall markets later. As a part of our strategy, we're going to high footfall destinations first because
mm,
to be able to be a brand in the consumer's mind, you have to be first available at the most obvious places. Only then are you a brand.
mm,
So yeah, so that's our expansion strategy right now. So similarly in the south, we are at Uti, we're in Bangalore, we're in Pondicherry, Coorg, Kochi. So all of these destinations, and we have very strong presence in Goa. We have three large hostels in Goa. So we have
mm.
almost about 300, 400 beds in Goa alone.
Awesome, awesome. What's your future immediate? How does the next 3 years look like?
So next 1.5 to 2 years, our vision is to expand from our current 2,600 beds or 2,500 beds to about 10,000 beds over the next 1.5 to 2 years. So
Mm.
by 3 years, we should be at about 15,000 or 20,000 beds. And over the next 5 years, I want to get to 50, 60,000 beds.
How about beyond India?
So it's a possibility. But right now, India itself is such a large market.
Untapped market, yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Excellent.
huge. So, but needless to say, we will expand into at least Nepal and Sri Lanka, which is very
Mm,
easy for our Indian youth that we're going after to travel to, and we want to give them access to their own desi brand wherever they travel. Right? We love it when we travel to New York and you have a Taj there, or we travel to
mm.
London or Morocco and we have a Taj.
Ah, okay. So they would relate to it and they would go to the same brand. Excellent.
Yes, they should have their own brand.
Excellent. Pankaj, thank you for shedding so much light into this industry, and you have been, I mean, you have been sharing almost everything without hiding any of the numbers or how the execution is. That clearly states the confidence that you have and the hold that you have on this sector. And thank you. I think a lot of our listeners will benefit from this. So thanks for sharing and giving us your time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and this helps me internalize a lot of my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.